On today's episode of Empowering Women in Real Estate, the podcast, we're going to be talking about the hidden financial stress of successful women with Michelle Jacobik.
Hi, I'm Karen Cooper, a wife, mom of three, real estate broker, team owner, and founder of Empowering Women in Real Estate. As a realtor, I've personally helped well over 700 families in my career, and now I help thousands of women from all across the country balance real life and real estate through daily inspiration, motivation, and actionable plans to increase their success. Listen in as I share stories and tips from my life and business and interview some of my favorite people.
Hi there. I'm so glad you're here for today's episode. You know, if you have been a follower of our Empowering Women in Real Estate community on Facebook, and if you're not, we would love to have you come join us. There are well more than 42,000 women in the real estate industry that are a part of that community. Today's podcast guest, Michelle Jacobik, she actually did a webinar for us, and I want to say this maybe last year that we had her on to do this. And I love what Michelle teaches. And you're going to hear this in this episode. I think a lot of us, we are business owners, we're entrepreneurs, but while we know how to sell another house and while we know how to do negotiations and things like that, we're really not taught how to manage our money. And we're especially not taught how to manage our money in real estate. When I think about how many years I've been in business, this is year 24 for me. And there's only been 2 times that I have ever attended any kind of a training where it was specifically talking about managing your money and real estate. And one of those was a course that I did years ago with Brian Buffini, and the other was with Michelle. And so I am really excited for you to hear today's episode. And also the fact that Michelle is going to be on the stage. She is going to be a keynote speaker at this year's Empowering Women in Real Estate Conference, which is happening on September 29th and 30th in Northern Virginia. And so today's episode is really going to give you a little bit of a peek into, and we actually cover a ton of topics today. I don't think we get to money until the last few minutes of today's episode, but you're really going to hear a lot in this episode that really kind of gives you a glimpse into who Michelle is and the knowledge that she has and so freely shares. So I'm excited for you to hear this episode today. And until next time, stay well. Michelle, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks, Karen. It's great to be here with you.
So I feel like this has been a long time coming with us having you on the podcast, but also speaking at the conference, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But before we jump too far in, will you please tell our audience, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, what you do, all the things?
Absolutely. So I am Michelle Jacobik, and I'm the author of The Path to Profits, an entrepreneur's guide to having it all and still having a life, as well as another one, international bestseller, Prosperity After Divorce, Take Charge of Your Finances and Recreate the Life You Really Want with Lifestyle Redesign Planning. So you hear a little theme there, right? You hear a little bit about money. So I'm a business strategist who helps CEOs and founders honestly unclog their cash flow and fire up their profits. And I'm a transplant from Connecticut. I now call Naples home for the last 4 years. I'm in Florida. And I've been an entrepreneur for 37 years. I've built businesses, I've sold businesses, I've started over, I've rebuilt after the hard season of divorce, I've raised a blended family, and I've navigated every version of entrepreneurship from the launch of the World Wide Web and the fax machines to the current landscape that's being led by AI. It's been a lot of years. So one thing that I know for sure is that most entrepreneurs know how to make money. Very few are taught the business of business. And that's what I'm really passionate about, is helping other people understand how the business of business and the personal finance place, because the truth is that they're married. So
they are. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. And I was thinking about it before we got on today, because you did a webinar for us in Empowering Women in Real Estate. I want to say it's been maybe over a year ago. And it was kind of along those lines a little bit, and with your book, The Path to Profits. And I had so much good feedback from that, because I think especially, let's speak to who our audience is here, women in real estate. We aren't taught the business of business. Maybe you're taught sales and you're taught how to bring in those commissions, but but we're not taught how to actually run the business like a business, especially from a financial perspective. I can think of so many examples of women that I know in real estate that have gotten in trouble with the IRS and, you know,
100%.
right?
Hmm.
Like the taxes and then the money for marketing and, they get a giant commission check one day and then, the next month they don't have money for marketing. So this is such an important topic that I really love that we're going to talk about. Before we go into much of that yet, will you talk about your relationship with Ed Milet? Because, I am also a fellow Ed Milet fan. He had one of those private, anybody who listens to his
Hmm.
podcast will know about it, right? It's like the private thing at his home. You went last
Yeah,
year and he's doing something for you or you're doing something with him later this year. Is that right?
I am. So, yes, I actually took a leap in December, and I had already known intuitively that I wanted Ed as a mentor in my business at this
Mhm.
stage of where I am and where I'm going, and this like bigger version of the work that I'm doing in the world and the impact. And I've watched Ed over the last 5 years. What's really beautiful is that the way I found Ed and his Maxed Out podcast,
Mhm.
my son was in military college. He was a freshman up in Vermont. And his first 16 weeks, he couldn't talk to anybody, but he was on the soccer team. So he did have access to his cell phone when he was on the bus going to games. He was playing collegiate soccer. And he had found an episode. I think Ed had just at that point like launched his podcast, and somebody must have sent it to, and we were always passing things back and forth. My kids did not
Yeah.
grow up with like Dr. Seuss being read to them. They grew up with like the power of positive thinking and how to win friends and influence people and rich dad, poor dad playing in the car. I just literally, that's what they grew up with, personal and professional development.
I
And
love that.
so my son sent me the episode of Ed on Maxed Out, and he said, "You are going to love this guy. He's just like you." And anybody that has children in college, and I know that you have one going off right this year,
Yep.
the thing that you really crave is just to know that they're okay. Not that
Yeah.
they're safe, but that they're
Yeah.
emotionally okay, they're
Yep.
mentally okay. And it's a big change. And they are homesick and all the things. And some do really, really well. And
Yeah.
others, like they kind of suffer in silence. And I didn't know
Yeah.
which version of that my son
Mhm.
was in. And then he sent me the podcast. So what I did was, of course, I listened to it and I loved it. And we then started every week for
Yeah.
the next year. Every
Uh,
week that an episode came out, we would listen and then we would dialogue it together.
oh,
And
I
so,
love that. Yeah.
yeah, so Ed became this thread between my son and I during his first year of college. And what's
Mhm.
so beautiful is when he graduated, he was waiting to go off to the Air Force. He had 4 years, he's in the Air Force now and serving. He had 4 or 5 weeks in between, and he came out here to Naples to stay with me. And I got an email that Ed was doing his Arte event with Andy Frisella, and it was in Nashville. And I looked at my son, who was doing a little work for me on marketing, and he has a business degree, marketing degree. And I said, we should do this together. And he said, book it. So we
Uh,
went and we met Ed in person. And that was the beginning. I was like, okay, I'm going to work with Ed. And so I worked with him in the group program, the Arte program that him and Andy had out. There was no pitching, which I loved. And
mhm.
I stayed in that program for a couple of years, but I knew everything in my being was like, I know Ed is going to be a mentor of mine
Yep.
personally. So when the invite came out, I had already been feeling that for a couple of years. And I thought, it's a hell yes. It was the largest investment that I had ever made for a day in my business. It was
Wow.
$25,000. And I thought, here's the funny thing, Karen. I went because I needed to know whether he was transactional or relational.
Oh, how interesting.
Because I'm
And
going
what
to
you
work
find
with it.
out.
He is completely relational.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's completely relational. And I can share that because after I left, I had, left something for him, and that he sent a video and like a text, and beautiful. And I thought, this is somebody who really does care about people. What you see is what you get. He's on the
Yeah.
Life Search tour. He's speaking to different groups, and he truly is. He's a good human. And
Mhm.
I thought I needed to know that. That's really why I went in the
Yep.
room. I thought,
That's so
well, if
crazy.
anything, I'll come out with some really great, quantum friendships and business
Mhm.
allegiances and whatnot for the 12 people that were there. But what happened for me was I started to think, how can I create this? Right. I think one of the things that you'll learn about me and what I teach other people is we don't ask the right questions of our
Yep.
brain. The what ifs that we present are the what if negatives. And one of the things
Mhm.
that I think I do really well with clients is teaching them that they need to move from the what if worry and the what if negatives to the what if the possibility of.
Yeah.
What if? And the way to do that is to simply ask better questions.
Yeah.
So I knew when I came back that I was going to work with Ed one on one. I didn't know how, but I did know. And so I started meditating and I started thinking, how can I create this? Simply, how can I create this? What opportunities am I not seeing? How is this possible? And I started meditating, and 4 days in a row, I kept seeing Hope Island. And I kept seeing that's his private island where he's never hosted anybody. And I thought, okay, why is it Hope Island? Like Hope Island, this is crazy.
Yeah.
It would never happen. And I'm like, that, well, I'd never say never. And so I just kept thinking, how is it possible?
Yeah.
And I thought, he sent me a video and it was simply like, I know we're going to work together and I don't know how, but you need to get with my sister and talk about it. Right. She's the CEO.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, well, great. Thanks for the video because I have a thought.
Uh,
And I basically presented I host these Thrive Hive masterminds. I do them 3 times a year.
yeah.
And I had not put out my September date. In November, I always put out my 3 dates because my son's getting married. And I thought, don't plan your fall one. And
Right.
I thought, oh my gosh, I love Maine in September. I have a client that I had bartered with for years. I go there for a month in September for my birthday. And I thought, well, imagine if just I tell that story. And what if there's a possibility that Ed and I could co host my Thrive Hive? So
Oh,
he said yes. It took a little finagling. It took a
yeah.
little, I think also he is a faith man. And
Mhm.
I think that he can feel my heart that
Yeah.
there's this sense that we both are supposed to do something. And I'm grateful and I'm still pinching myself, and
Wow.
I have 8 spots remaining.
I was just going to
It's
ask you how many
going
you had
to,
left. Yes. Awesome.
yes, I have
Awesome.
8 spots remaining. And so if anybody is listening and wants to have a conversation, just shoot me a message.
Awesome.
Because if you're meant to be there, it will change your
Yeah.
life.
Wow.
Everybody hears proximity is power. It
Yep.
truly is. The day that I made that investment of $25,000 for a day with
Yeah.
somebody, you just know that
Mhm.
there's something that is going to come out of it. And I've had situations where I've
Yeah.
invested at a high level like that and came out and realized that the person that I invested in was transactional. And what did
Yeah.
it make me? More relational. So
Yeah.
sometimes it isn't always the positive, but I'm going to tell you that everything that I walked away from my day with
Yeah.
Ed, including
Yeah.
the quantum friendships and business relationships that I have
Mhm.
today from the people that were in the room, have made a huge difference this last year, and it will continue to make a difference going onward. So
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, I love it. So many things that you said, I love. And for anybody who doesn't know, Andy Frisella is the one who started 75 Hard, right? So I think a lot of people
Yes.
have heard of that. I love what you were saying about, first, of course, being a boy mom too. Like, I love that relationship with your son and like kind of
Mhm.
connecting with that with Ed's podcast. I'm an avid listener and I know many people are of his as well. But I love that you listened and identified he's going to be a mentor of mine. And
Mhm.
and isn't that actually a beautiful thing about our world right now that even if you hadn't met him, right? Even if you hadn't kind of been able to go that next step, there are so many opportunities like through podcasts like this and like through
Mhm.
different programs and things that you do and things that I do where we can kind of have these mentors that are in our world where the
Yes.
information is available that you wouldn't necessarily have otherwise, which I think is
Oh
is
my
is
gosh.
so beautiful, right?
We're so lucky. And I think that's the thing, right? Not everybody is going to be able to or should take
Yep,
out their, wallet and make
yep,
that investment. But what it does do is it gives you this space to say, oh, can I go listen to that podcast? Can I read The
yes,
Power of One More? Can I read The
that's
Path to
right.
Profits? Can I join that community of
Yep,
people in a Facebook group? And what can I take that will
yes,
help me move the needle
yes,
now? Because at the
yes,
end of the day, we should always be learning. We should
yes,
always
that's
be
right.
learning. And learning comes in different forms. Learning
Mhm.
comes from getting out and having humility and stepping
Yep,
into rooms and networking with not pulling out anything, but being kind to somebody,
yeah,
noticing that somebody else is new and you've been in the group for a while.
yeah,
There's so many ways that we can grow in
yeah,
our humanity, in our
yeah,
businesses, and in who we
yeah,
are in our families and our communities. And
yep.
so, yeah, I love that we have such access today, such
Yes, we do.
access.
We do. I
Mhm.
mean, it's truly like unprecedented when you think about like the history of the world. And I think about, me, I've been in real estate 24 years. You've been an entrepreneur for 37 years. Like, think about like when we started, what it looked like versus what it is now and what's available. Like, it's almost mind-boggling, right? What is available to the point, I think, sometimes that people are so overwhelmed by it, right? Because there is just almost kind of too much.
Mhm.
I was just saying to somebody at our team meeting yesterday, and we were talking about relationships. And I think sometimes in business, especially in real estate, I think sometimes we discount those relationships maybe with other agents because we see them as the competition and we don't necessarily
Mhm.
see them as
like a stepping stone to other opportunities, but actually they are. And when you're open to those relationships, you don't
Yeah.
know, right, where maybe an accountability partnership is going to form, or a referral relationship is going to form, or who they can connect you to, right? That's going to, like,
Yeah.
like I was connected to you through our friend Robin Gebhardt, and then now we're
Yeah.
here and you're coming to the conference.
Before we get back to today's content, I just wanted to check in on conference registration. So we're about 9 weeks out right now, and seats are really moving fast at this point. We have women coming in from all across the country for this conference, and I want to make sure that you have a spot if you want one. Here's what I know about our Empowering Women in Real Estate community. The women who show up for this conference are the ones who decided early that they were worth investing in. They booked the flight, they got the hotel room, and they're showing up for themselves. If that's you, I hope you're already registered. And if you've been on the fence, I want you to know that the 2 days that we're going to be gathering together and the speakers that you're going to get to hear from is worth every bit of the investment from the perspective of your time and your money. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to our website, empoweringwomeninrealestate.com, and click on the conference. Early bird seats are now gone, but we do have some general admission seats remaining, and I hope that you can get one. I hope to see you there.
One other thing that you said, which I really want to hit on, was you mentioned the what if worry, right? And we all do this. We all, well, what if this, what if that? And those what ifs, and I do this, like the what ifs tend to be very negative, or they tend to be very
Yes.
based around a worry instead of, and it's
A
such a subtle
possibility.
shift, right? Instead of a possibility, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that so true?
Yeah, it's so true. And it's honestly, listen, I grew up Catholic, and I think that, that was part of the fabric, was like this suffering piece of this worry,
Yeah.
and like that. Yes. And I didn't think that way. Even as a child, I was like, I had a creator mindset, and I had this like ability, like, but why would I focus on that when I could focus on this? But you are right. We can find ourselves, and me included, it is a practice. It's a muscle that you
Yeah.
have to build. And, I think actually when I attended your conference last year, I came as an attendee and just absolutely
Yes.
loved it. And for those that are listening, like, don't miss this. Do not
Yeah.
miss the opportunity to be in a room with other women that are in your field, that just, this is an uplifting day. I'm not even in real estate, and I
Yeah.
got so much out of your conference last year, and I was so glad that I flew in. But one of the things that I think I shared in the room was I have an appointment with my voice of doubt Friday at 4:10 every
Yes,
week.
you did share
And
that.
I'll share that
Uh-huh.
here again, because it's
Please.
so impactful. Because here's what happens. I have those what ifs. What
Mhm.
if I get on the stage and nothing comes out of my mouth? What if
Yep.
I forget? What if I have a plane crash? What if I'm running my event and I get COVID? There are
Yeah.
a lot of what ifs. And what happens is, when I hear one come up, they can paralyze us. They can put us in procrastination. They can
Yep.
keep us off of our mission. They can keep us out of alignment, and truly as far from our purpose as we possibly can. And that is what the enemy does, right? It'll just
Yes,
keep
that's
planting
right.
the seeds of fear. And so for me, the thing, and I've tried all different types of tools, right? Putting my hand on my heart and saying, like, okay, the 5-year-old that's saying that, I've got this. But the thing that's been the most impactful is having this appointment every Friday at 4:10 with my voice of doubt. Because when it comes in and I hear that negative what if, I simply say, you don't belong here. You can come back Friday at 4:10. And
Mhm.
usually those voices are the loudest at the beginning of our week. When we're in our greatest momentum on
Yep.
Monday, we're
Yep.
thinking about momentum. We're thinking about market. We're thinking about
Yep.
our goals, our growth, our week. We're striking the iron to have a great, productive week. So
Yeah.
they are usually louder at the beginning of the week. Here's what happens. I keep moving. I simply just keep saying, come back Friday at 4:10. When my alarm goes off Friday at 4:10, I do give myself 20 minutes, so 4:10 to 4:30, and I have a journal, and I sit and I say, okay, what are you saying? And
Yeah.
here's what's so funny. You generally will forget everything
Oh,
that it
wow.
said, because you've already moved past it. You kept
Yeah.
moving, right?
Yeah.
It wanted to stop you. So the what ifs, generally, action is the enemy of thought. And
Yes.
so when the thoughts are happening, you take action. So the way that I'm able to keep people are like, how do you take action? Well, because I have an appointment on Friday that can sit on. Now, there will be times where I will scratch out something and I'm like, this needs space for me to just
Mhm.
talk it out, think it out, deal with it. Is it a limiting belief? Is it something that I need to heal, release, whatever? And here's the thing. If it keeps coming up 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row, that's when I know I need support.
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
that's when I
Mhm.
know it's therapy, it's coaching, it's whatever. It's
Interesting.
something, because
Yeah.
if something keeps coming up, you have
Uh-huh.
a choice. You're going to keep letting it keep you hostage.
Yep.
Even if it's still Friday at 4:10, it's still keeping you hostage. Get
Right.
support.
Oh,
Work
wow.
on it. If it's money
Yeah.
mindset, if it's you need some education, sometimes it's learning,
Yeah.
sometimes it's therapy, like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's relevant. So
Right.
don't ignore it.
I
Deal
love
with
that.
it.
I love that.
Mm,
You know what I love? You know, I gotta love a good system, right? And what I love that you've done here is like you've set aside a time, right? You've got a time
mhm.
associated Friday at 4:10 for this. So when that thought comes up, you can kind of give it, it's like, okay, come back Friday at 4:10. So you sort of have a process for that. It's a muscle that you, like you said.
Yeah.
But what I love is what you said about how a lot of times like it won't even come back up again Friday at 4:10. That's how you
Yes.
know it's fleeting. But when it comes again and again, and how many times do those of us as women in our businesses, we have these things that come up, these worries, these situations. There was something I heard one time, and I think maybe it was Oprah Winfrey back, on her show
Yeah.
many years ago, that like when it comes up over and over again, like the lesson, it will keep showing up until you learn the lesson, right? And so that's
Yes.
kind of what you're saying. When that
Yep.
worry, when it keeps coming up, there is a lesson there. There's something to be focused on. There's something to dig into there.
Yeah. And I hate it because the work is the work, right? It's
Oh,
like, oh, I've already dealt with that. I got to peel another
yeah, I
layer
gotta
of
do
the
it again.
onion.
Yeah,
I got
yeah,
to do it
yeah,
again, right? But as
yeah,
we up level and as we grow, right,
yep.
in our walk, there's
Hmm.
always going to be a new version of the
That's right.
thing. And
That's
I've
right.
just come to embrace that, right?
Yeah,
I'm doing
yeah.
shadow work now for the last like year with a
Wow.
practitioner that I have. And
Uh,
it's so hard. It's hard work,
yeah, it
right?
is
Like for
hard.
the first, yeah, for the first time, I'm like, I processed anger for the first time in my life. I'm like, I don't get angry ever. And then she's like, no, no, I know you don't, but you need to process what anger is. And I'm just like, no, I really don't, because I moved on. I don't get angry. And then I
Mhm.
gave myself the space. It was the hardest freaking session I've ever done because I
Really?
was like, yes, ever. It's funny because again, it probably goes back to my upbringing where, anger is not an expression that people want to see. And it's like,
For
if you're
women,
angry,
especially.
if,
Yes.
yeah, especially for women, if you're angry, right, and you're carrying around anger. So what happens is because you don't express anger, it turns into resentment and it turns into victimhood and it
Mhm.
turns into martyrdom and all of those
Right.
things. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, imagine how much I could have saved
Yeah.
myself from all of those
That's
if I
right.
had just expressed anger. And
That's right.
so it was very freeing, very hard,
Yeah.
but very
Yes.
freeing. And here's the thing, the truth is that if we're doing the work, the inner work, the
Yes.
external work, our business, our growth, our relationships, our everything grows. When we
Yeah.
grow,
That's
everything
right.
grows.
Absolutely right. Absolutely
So
right.
I always say
And
we're never done learning.
no, we're never done learning. And, I heard one time Fabienne Fredrickson, who has been like a mentor to me, right, that I've
Yeah,
followed for many
she's
years.
great.
I heard her years ago at a conference, and she said every level is a new devil. And it's so hard. I
Mm,
think that we think, I'm going to grow and I'm going to improve and I'm going to get to this spot in my business and then I'm going to know everything. But it's not true. It's just, there's a new devil, right, at that next level.
yeah.
So this is a perfect kind of segue into the conference, right? So
Mhm.
at the conference, you're going to be talking about the hidden financial stress of successful women, which I think is going to be such a powerful conversation. Will you give us just a little, maybe a little highlight about what you're going to be sharing?
Sure. I think from a core, right, the hidden financial stress of successful women is that so many women are successful and still walking around with the financial worry.
Yep.
They're walking around with the financial pressure, right? Because even as we grow successfully, if we don't have a system around our money, if we don't have awareness around our money, there is pressure.
Yeah.
And that is what happens. People jump onto the battlefield of entrepreneurship with a ton of excitement and passion about what they're going to do. Yet, no one has truly taught them to understand their numbers, how to
Yeah.
create financial stability, how to manage growth without the stress and the pressure, how to
Mhm.
align business success with personal peace. And so, what happens is, even incredibly successful women and men can feel quietly overwhelmed,
Yep.
financially reactive,
Yep.
uncertain,
Yep.
stand in financial avoidance, which is
Mhm.
huge, right?
Mhm.
Because there's things that happen when we're doing that, or like they should have it all figured out by now. And that is the work that I'm deeply passionate about. It's
Mhm.
helping entrepreneurs stop avoiding their numbers and start building real financial clarity,
Yeah.
confidence, and stability. And that's both business and personally, right? So revenue alone doesn't create peace. More
Yep.
revenue does not create peace. Financial systems do.
Yep.
And so if someone is in the season of growing their business, but they know something underneath that still feels
Yep.
messy
Yep.
and unclear financially, I want them to know, one, that they're not alone. And I think that every woman in that room will feel
Mhm.
some element of connection to the conversation that we're going to have, and that it's absolutely fixable.
Yep. The biggest misconception, I think, is what you said that I think so many have, especially in real estate, is, well, I just need to make more money. I just need, my
Yes,
problem will be solved if I just have another transaction. If I can just bring in another commission, it's kind of like you were talking about, like the shadow work and working inside. But if the inside isn't fixed, if the mindset isn't fixed, if the foundation of your business and how you manage your finances isn't fixed, more money isn't gonna like make it better. It's actually gonna maybe make it worse, right?
100%. Because here's what happens: the more that we make, the gap gets bigger.
Yep.
The gap is between where you are and the money that's coming in. It's all the stuff that goes missing. Because
Yeah.
what happens is there's more, but we're like, wait a minute, why doesn't it feel like there's more? Why
Yeah.
did I get to the point where it's April and I owe the IRS $130,000 and I really thought I only owe the IRS 75, right? And so what happens is the gap just becomes bigger, and the
Yeah.
money that falls through that gap, because there's no system around
Yep.
the money that falls through that gap is actually what's creating a lack of stability and a lack
Yep.
of prosperity and a lack of wealth and a lack of self-trust. And
Yep.
honestly, it's fixable, right? We
Yes.
just have to need to understand that it is about having a system and that it can be taught
Yep.
and applied, yeah, so I'm excited. I'm
Oh
excited to talk
gosh,
about
I'm so
helping
thrilled.
people remove this financial stress. Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's
I think
there. It's
it
there.
it is there. I think this is going to be such an impactful session at the conference. You are also going to be gifting, all of our attendees are going to be receiving a copy of your book, The Path to Profit. So we're really grateful for that opportunity.
Yes.
Well, as well, I know many women who've read the book and have raved about it. So I think that's going to be amazing. So for anyone who wants to connect with you, or maybe they're interested in this opportunity at Hope Island with Ed Milet, or just want to work with you or learn more about you, what is the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, I would say to definitely go to my website. It's michellejacobik.com. And then definitely connect with me on LinkedIn, because I have a great weekly newsletter that I put out called The Path to Profits, where I share really great nuggets and tips and tricks around business and money. And I do that weekly through the Path to Profits newsletter. So you can subscribe. And then I love being able to connect with people that are following me or need support on Instagram. So again, it's Michelle Jacobik in all the places. I've just branded my name so that people can
That's what
find
you
me
need to
instead
do.
of being
That's
like,
awesome.
yeah, what is it?
Fabulous.
Um, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being on today. And I can't wait to see you in September.
Yes, me too. I'm looking forward to it and looking forward to meeting many of the people that are listening.
We'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to Empowering Women in Real Estate, the podcast. Click subscribe to be notified every Wednesday when our latest episode is released, and be sure to check out our group on Facebook.